Start with the customer experience. That's a quote from Steve Jobs. Now, I have produced nearly over 100 videos here on Flying Doggy's YouTube channel. At this stage, I don't believe I've played a Steve Jobs video. Well, today's going to be the day, and I know it's a very common thing for most IT companies to do, because Steve Jobs was a bit of a cult hero in the space. But this one's only short, and I want you to watch it from end to end to get the idea of what I want to go through in this video.
You know, you can please some of the people some of the time. And one of the things I've always found is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room. And I've got the scar tissue to prove it. And I know that it's the case. And as we have tried to come up with a strategy and a vision for Apple, it started with what incredible benefits can we give to the customer? Where can we take the customer? Not starting with, let's sit down with the engineers and figure out what awesome technology we have, and then how are we going to market that. And I think that's the right path to take.
So what did you get from that video? Well, for me, there was one key sentence, and that is the premise of what I want to talk about in this video. You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. That's an excellent quote from Steve Jobs, and it's probably over 30 years old at this point. For me, this is more pertinent than ever. And let's have a think about some of the technologies that have been put forward prior to the actual problem being solved. Things for me that come to mind are things like blockchain, AI, and even more. These are very interesting and unique technologies and have very good applications in the real world. But most people reach for them first before they start with the actual problem. That inherently becomes a problem with both AI and blockchain. They're very cool in some demonstrations, but what problem are they actually solving? So to help work out what problem you can actually solve, I've got a couple of examples here to help you narrow down exactly what problem you're trying to solve and for who. The first thing I want to show you here is around how this normally is approached, and that is around user personas. So what I've got to show you here is two user personas. Person one, born in 1948, grew up in England. Married the second time with 2 children. Successful in business, wealthy, spends their winter holiday in the Alps, and likes dogs. Person two, surprisingly, born in 1948, grew up in England. Married the second time, 2 children. Successful business, wealthy, spends their winter holidays in the Alps, likes dogs. So these people are two of the same people, and on paper, they're the same user persona. So generally when we're looking at problems, we see these user personas and we think they are going to have the same problems. Now, let's have a look. Who is person one? Well, that's Prince Charles. Can we guess who person two is? Well, I think you did quite well if you guessed person two. That's Ozzy Osbourne. So while these two people have very similar attributes, problems they have in their life they need solved are going to be completely different. So for me, using user personas is not a good way to drill down into these problems. And as Steve Jobs says, you need to start with a problem and then work towards a solution. I came across a really good illustration here from a guy called Matt Lerner on LinkedIn. He actually has a very long post which I'll link to below, but I wanted to give this excerpt to show you how you can really drill down into problems and see which ones are more interesting for you to drill into and which ones are just fluff that are trying to distract you. Try this thought experiment. Imagine you're on a beachside restaurant and you're trying to get more customers. Which of these facts is more useful to you? Number one, Tammy is a 39-year-old divorced mother of 2 from Atlanta. She works compliance, earns $58K per year, throws right, votes left. So this one comes back to that user persona that I talked to about there. You know roughly what status she is in life, where she's from, how much she earns, and some of the attributes about her. But let me have a look at point 2. Tammy is on the sweltering hot beach with 2 kids. They're getting hungry and one of them has to pee. So you can see here we can start seeing actual problems that Tammy has. We don't know anything about her in this case, but we know 2 of the problems she has. So you can easily go and look at what you can solve in this situation. Option 2 wins. It tells us that ice cold aircon and no fuss kids menu will draw Tammy in, when number 1 leaves us guessing. And this is really important. What you want to hear is when you're talking to your clients, you want to hear about the problems they have. You don't want to be projecting any solutions or technologies onto them to start with. You want to hear what problems they have. You want to hear anything about their age or their demographic or how much they earn or what their status is. What you want to know is the problems they have. IT development is essentially a problem-solving game. You want to get the problem and solve that problem. Once you have the problem and you've worked out a way to solve it, that's when you can bring technology in and try and take that solve to the next level. What you don't want to do is what some people fall into a trap to, and I see many people talk to me about is they get the technology first, then they come back and they try and find the problem. Or even worse, people launch a business with the solution and they don't even know what the problem is. That's because they sometimes do user personas and they'll guess and they'll say, well, Prince Charles has problems. I'm sure we can solve it with this solution. So to recap here, if we go back to what Steve Jobs said at the start of the video, you've got to start with the customer experience or the customer's problem and work backwards to the technology or the solution. And that's probably the best thing you can do in your business, regardless if you're starting up or large, is go to your client base, ask what problem they want to solve, and then solve that problem. Don't give them something you think they want. Don't give them the technology you think they want. Don't do any of that. Start with a problem and give them the solution that they want for that problem. What you'll find then is there's actually a lot of things that fall into place. Your sales and marketing will be far easier. You'll be able to price your product at a point that they will buy it because they'll see value, and your business will go from strength to strength. Again, based on the fact that Steve Jobs said this over 30 years ago, and I'm guessing this wasn't the first time someone came up with this, it's a tried and true method of business that applies software development today, as it always has. And I hope you can see in your clients where their problems are, and you make sure you're solving their problems and not just giving them a technology to use.